Ladies and gentlemen, this is D'Angelo, aka Darth Mexican from The Geek Life. That is thegeeklyfe.com. And today I am joined with some amazing, wonderful, good-looking human beings by the name of the Four Orbs, or at least a part of the podcast called the Four Orbs. And I'm a huge fan of their production. I really, really enjoy it. I harass Dave daily about like how good his podcast is. And today I finally got to get a chance to sit down with them, and I'm really excited. So the first question that I have for you guys, for those who are unaware, who are you and what is the Four Orbs?
I guess I'll start this off.
Yeah, that's a you question, Dave.
My name's Dave Cole. I'm the Dungeon Master, host, and producer of Four Orbs, a Dungeons & Dragons actual play podcast. I have with me today two of our players, and I'll go to our left next.
Oh, that's me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Ryan Adams. I play Dorith, Fabe, Grom, and Kyle on the Four Orbs. And yeah, that's me.
I'm Matt Hendrick. I play Flynn Finch Cartwright of the Four Orbs.
Yeah. Cool. And then, all right, now give us the elevator pitch. What is the Four Orbs, and why should everyone check it out?
So, Four Orbs in an elevator pitch. We're kind of a unique podcast, actual play podcast, because we have some homebrew rules that kind of stick out. And a lot of people might think it handicaps some of our players, but I think it's a great story point. Speaking specifically to Life Force, whenever you cast spells, it costs your health. But the unique side of it is I actually compose all the music for the podcast. So unlike a lot of other actual plays where you might hear some of the same royalty-free music, which it's not a jab at anyone. Not everyone's a musician, but I specifically compose the music for our podcast, which gives it a nice cinematic feel that you might not usually get from some others.
Yeah, it's really cool. I really appreciate that you take like talents outside of Dungeons & Dragons and apply it into the actual production. And because you mentioned multiple times on the podcast that you're like a musician and like you have a band and all that kind of stuff. And actually, do you want to plug your band really quick?
Sure.
Band.
South Carlin is the name of the band. Matt, who's here with us, is also a part of the band.
So,
I'll let him pitch that one since I'm pitching Four Orbs.
well, I mean, we're still pretty local. We stick around Mobile, but we've started trying to spread our area a little bit, getting up to Nashville and New Orleans and stuff. But we play like indie rock, very similar. We've been kind of compared to like a punker Strokes, but we kind of take influences from like Arctic Monkeys, The National, all sorts of things really. Because when it really comes down to it, we just kind of four guys in a room trying to be happy with what we're creating. Because sometimes what may sound good isn't what we're happy with, and we'll scratch the whole song. But yeah, we're South Carlin, and I think we rock.
Right on.
So South Carlin, Carlin is spelled Carlen. Sometimes people think it has an I in it. So
nice. And then, so the remainder of the interview is going to be about the Dungeons & Dragons podcast. But really quick, where can we find you guys online for your band?
For the band, you can find us on all major music streaming platforms like Spotify, Google Play.
Right on.
We're also on YouTube. We have our own little YouTube page that's really just there for the EP that I actually self-produced.
And there's some live show footage on there too.
That's true. I forgot we did that. We have some live footage on there.
You could also go to southcarlin.com, and that has links to everything, really.
Yeah, we have an electronic press kit of southcarlin.com, which should get you everywhere.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then, all right, so I can definitely tell from listening to the podcast that you guys all have your different experiences with Dungeons & Dragons, whether it be like your first time playing or you've been playing this for quite a while. Could you give us like a little rundown of what your guys' origin story for Dungeons & Dragons was, how you got into it, whether you were introduced or you had to like just struggle bust your way through learning it yourself and all that?
Well, personally, I was in high school, and that's where I met Dave. And he, I guess, has always been just very interested in Dungeons and Dragons. And I just kind of started hanging out with the group of friends that he had, and eventually, I just started playing with them. And
Took a while though, right?
Yeah, because you know you from the outside you're always looking at Dungeons and Dragons like, oh, I'm not. That's the pinnacle of geek or whatever.
That'll
Like
never be
I'm
me. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I'm a nerd and all that, but I'm not that far. But then I don't know. I would just sit in or whatever, and eventually I made a character, and now I've been playing for over a decade now, and it really doesn't feel like that because it's so much fun. And it's kind of like this same universe we've been playing in, not literally the same, but sort of the skeleton of the universe that Dave created
interesting.
is like super old. Like it's really amazing.
Yeah, definitely. This I mean, I still feel like a novice sometimes, but Dave got me playing with him kind of when we first met about like 8 to 10 years ago, I think. And I'd never played before. Definitely kind of like Ryan was saying, outside looking in, like, sure, I guess I'll play with you. And then like immediately falling in love with it. And even like today, like I still sometimes feel like a novice D&D player when it comes to like all the different rules you got to remember and all the numbers. And because I'm definitely not a math whiz kid either, but I really get into the role-playing aspect, and again, I've never had another DM but Dave.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this with Steven, also known as Ke, when we were going home from our last session, and I was just like, man, like, it's so good. And like the homebrew rules he's talking about that we kind of play with sometimes, like, I just couldn't see myself wanting to play the game any other way.
Yeah. It just takes that right, like, drug dealer in order to get you hooked into it.
Oh, yeah.
We've been chasing the dragon ever since.
Exactly. All right, Dave, give it to us. How'd you get into Dungeons & Dragons?
So, yeah, for me, it's kind of an interesting, funny story. As you probably realize, but I don't know how many people are listening realize, we're from Alabama. So our roots back about 20 years ago was pretty hardcore Bible Belt.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the Bible Belt parents as well. So when I got to high school, there was this guy that introduced me to the game, but I was hesitant to play because I'd always heard that it was summoning demons. So
that made you hesitate? Why?
Because I grew up pretty heavy in the church. And so when I went home, I considered it, and I talked to my parents. They said, no, you cannot play that game. But it was high school, and it was my freshman year, so I started to become a little bit of rebellious. So whenever I went back to my friend, I was like, well, I'm not sure I really am comfortable playing, but because it's mostly the gods things, all the deities, can I just be a Christian paladin? And
worship
Jesus.
he
was, that's pretty much what I said, and he was accepting of it, and he understood completely, which was awesome. And so I played a Christian paladin for the first time when I was 15 years old. That game lasted for maybe 2 or 3 sessions, and I got addicted to the game. And so the quarrel that a DM always has, or that a player always has, is if you can't find a DM, you got to become one.
Yes.
So I became the dungeon master when I was 16 years old, and I've been DMing since. And that very first campaign involved 4 magical spherical objects called the Orbs.
That's super dope. Oh my gosh. And then perfect. Okay, so getting to watch your characters grow over the seasons have been such like a blessing, since a lot more of their backstory is being released and a lot more personal motivations are coming to light. And you guys have talked a little bit about this in your like sort of out of character sessions, which is really cool. But did you always have this sort of plan of where your character is currently in mind when you first created it, or was it more so of you started with some sort of simple concept and it's evolved into something you never thought really would be what you're aiming for and all
that? Where are we at on spoilers in this for you?
I finished Act 2,
no,
so like
no, I mean for like the people that might be listening to this.
Oh, I guess like okay, yeah. If you're new to the 4 Orbs, definitely like I don't even know how to do this because it would be audio. I don't know.
I think what we just need to say at this point is spoilers ahead.
Yeah, spoilers ahead. Yeah.
Vince, you might want to start us off.
Sure. Every time we start a campaign, you come in with an idea of who you want your character to be, but really it takes a few months before you start to learn who that person is inside of you and how to play them what feels like the right way. And then when Dave throws curveballs, it kind of changes you as a character too. And I'm definitely Finch isn't where I thought he would be, but I'm very happy with the outcome so far.
Yeah.
I guess to throw out some spoiler stuff. I don't know. When I originally started the character, I was kind of like trying to picture like a Robin Hood Han Solo, and had like an awareness to thieve, and I was like a highway robber style criminal kind of guy, and I was looking for like my mom's necklace on the black market and stuff, and it just it doesn't really feel like Finch anymore. When it really comes down to it. Now
Yeah.
I'm about peace and the law, and there's still a little bit of wildness in them, and finding out some truths in the most recent episodes. I'm kind of looking forward to trying to take a little bit of a darker turn with kind of like a anti-hero, maybe vigilante justice or something. But
Right on.
again, like I can't really say that that's going to happen because I really don't know yet. So sometimes I don't know what's going to happen until it comes out of my mouth and we're around the table.
Man, Dorith. Oh God. All right. So I play Dorith, right? He's a gnome bard who I don't know how much I'm allowed to curse in this.
No, go for it. Yeah, you're fine.
He is an asshole. I know this. Like he does and says things that people do not like. But what I didn't foresee was just the amount of hate people had for Dorith. Like reading reviews, people will say like, I like this podcast, but I couldn't listen to it anymore because I hate this one character. And I'll always want to like go to their house and knock on the door and just be like, give it time. Like it comes around.
It'll get better, please.
Like he gets his, trust me, all the time. But I don't know, it's fun playing that character that just kind of he kind of injects chaos into the story in a way that's fun to me, but can be annoying when you're listening to it. Because it's like we're going down a hallway, and it's like the mood is very much be very quiet, because if you're not quiet, something bad is going to happen. And have Dorith be that guy that just goes, Marco, and like skeletons burn out. We have to deal with it. But it's fun like that. I don't know.
It ruins Dave's tension and then like forces his hand.
I love ruining Dave's good time.
It's really cool because like I really enjoy the moments of like the whole drinking the potion and then suddenly you have to deal with the consequences of those actions, and then they just keep getting pulled back up, and then now there's a whole like kangaroo pouch thing, which is really interesting and fun.
I forgot about that. Oh my god, it's so gross.
So it's super fun. It's really cool. And then, hey, what about you, Dave? Like, how do you feel about everyone when they first started and got sat down at the table to start like this podcast and watching their characters grow? Like, what are your opinions on all that kind of stuff?
So when I started out the podcast, the way I write the story and overall for every campaign I do is I write the beginning and we kind of railroad our sessions pretty early on just to kind of get the characters moving and the story going. And then the end I usually write as well, but I write a lot of different endings for that ending. So it's kind of, I picture it like a video game. With that in mind, what I did was I assigned each character something in my head that only I knew. And what you know as someone who's listened, at the end of Act 2, a big one was revealed for Keth. That was something he had no clue was there. I did not know how he was going to accept it.
Yeah.
But the way it all came together was so perfect.
We were all blessed.
Yeah.
My favorite, was like the DM giggle when Sully.
You had to see it. Like
he ran, bro.
Okay, sorry. Go on. Keep it going.
Oh yeah, sure. But yeah, I do that with the characters. I have a secret that they don't know. The big one was for Finch was his ancestry. Dorith's has not been revealed yet.
It has not.
Felomir's was revealed with his connection to I I guess we're in spoiler territory.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's fine.
spoiler territory. With his connection to knowing that he might be able to craft a white orb, and also how he's connected to the guy that created the orbs. Astra's has been mostly revealed, with Oystrich being a sort of vessel that can talk. Oystrich being a mouse, that is. So for me, I'm seeing a development of the characters that I kind of envisioned. I would say the one that is the most shocking is Finch's dark side.
Yeah.
Him torturing an injured person twice was kind of was an interesting point, story plot that I did not know was coming.
The one in the sewers I'm not proud of. Okay. I don't know how much. Yeah. Anyways.
We needed that information. Like, come on. I forgave him.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like when you're in the moment, like sometimes I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And that's how I start to find the edges of Finch.
And it's good because like that actually leads me to one of the other questions. So over the course of the podcast, there have been some really like side-splitting moments when Dave will attempt to like make a decision or do something, whether in regards to like combat or the story, and then immediately it like just activates a trap card for everyone at the table and be like, hold on, wait a second, and you guys all get out like the player's handbook and like we'll search up the rules. In your guys' experience, do you find that Dave is more leaning faithful to the rules, or is it more so homebrew territory and all that?
I think it's more of what he feels is right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's the book, sometimes it's not. And honestly, I like it that way.
Yeah, it feels more like we can do like Matt was saying, we can do what feels right in the podcast or in the moment or for the story instead of having to stick so religiously to the handbook. But it's pretty close, I would say, to the handbook. We refer to it a lot, and you know,
I definitely don't think that we're far enough away from it to where it should really upset too many people. Maybe some real diehard fans that are all about the book and following the rules to the T.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, they're there. The rules are there.
Now we definitely have that. I'll forget his name, but the one dude that is always
Tony Beardsley.
Tony Beardsley is always hitting us up like, oh, actually, the rule book says this. Like, dude, go home.
Yep. It's. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, add to the Tony Beardsley comment. I appreciate it because we're coming from 3.5 to 5e to 5th edition, and so I still am learning 5th edition, even 60 episodes in.
Yeah.
So anyone like Tony that wants to correct us, let us know. We'll try and make our way into it.
Yeah, it might enlighten us to a rule we didn't know existed that could affect the game. Yeah.
I still say go home.
It's good because like even for veteran players who like know the books backwards and forwards, because there's this homebrew element, it adds like surprise to that just twists and turns they weren't expecting, because sometimes it can be like the Wild West, and then just things that aren't supposed to happen do happen. So it's like it's really cool, and I really do enjoy that about the podcast. And so what made you guys decide to start the Four Orbs as an actual podcast?
Yeah, that's definitely a Dave question.
Well, it's an overall question, I think. I mean, you guys had to agree to it.
This is true.
In all honesty, they get plenty of recognition throughout the actual play podcast world, but me and my wife were on our honeymoon, and it was basically a 2-week road trip for us, so we spent a lot of time listening to things. And I had heard of this podcast called The Adventure Zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I checked it out, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, obviously, because if you don't listen to The Adventure Zone, if you listen to The Adventure Zone, you'll love it. It's a great podcast. The McElroy boys do a great job. But in my head, I was also thinking, oh, I can do this. Because I knew Griffin made all the music, and I was really getting into the idea of making music digitally. So I found it as like a 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing, where I could do D&D on a larger scale that people could enjoy and also learn to make music. So I've only been making music digitally from the start of the Four Orbs. So it was a big learning process, and that's really what got me into it, was the Adventure Zone getting me inspired, and then my own wants and needs to get a better hobby than what I was doing before, which was League of Legends.
Oh yeah! Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I wanted to not play video games anymore, and believe me, with my 40-hour day job and my 40 hours of production a week for Four Orbs, and my various hobbies, I don't play video games anymore.
I don't know how you have. Honestly, I just wanted to. I like being in front of a microphone. That's my thing. I feel at home in front of a microphone, and playing Dorith or just playing D&D in general gives me a chance to like flex my comedy muscle. That's like what I do. I'm a comedian, but I don't know, just being in front of a microphone and getting to play a character that is kind of a comic relief in except for certain moments. But yeah, it's a lot of fun for me.
Right
Yeah,
on.
I guess I shouldn't be too modest either. I mean, I kind of like being in the spotlight. I get on stage every now and then, and to be able to like, I do look forward to going back and like listening to the episodes to hear what we all sound like and like what Dave's done to it. Like, man, we sound badass. You know, it's cool to feel that way.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll be listening to, like, for instance, the Act 2 finale. I will go back and listen to that episode on the edge of my seat, and I was there, like, when we recorded it. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen, and it still, I don't know, it still gives me a rush to listen to it.
That Gucci storytelling, so it's super good.
Yes.
All right, cool. And then that actually leads me to my next question as well. So a lot of people don't quite understand or know what it all takes to produce like an actual podcast. They just simply think it's just recording and putting up the episode, which is absolutely not what it actually is. Could you describe like a typical sort of like production from when you guys sit down in front of your mics to when it gets to the ears of the listener?
Well, first Dave tears his hair out. Absolutely.
So my biggest factor, if you are listening to this interview right now and you are planning to do a D&D podcast, it is required, whether remote or playing in person at a table, that each microphone has their own individual track. I will say that again. Each microphone needs its own individual track. The production of a D&D podcast, it varies in opinion from listener to listener. I mean, there are people that don't use a lot of music, that don't use sound effects, that don't use anything but their voice and the theme song that plays at the beginning and end of their episode. And there are listeners that, I mean, I'm very biased to the way we do our production with very cinematic style music and ambience and sound effects and putting effects on NPC voices, like a ghostly creature actually sounds like a ghost instead of me going woo. But I mean, there is an audience for you if you don't want to go that deep into your production process. And like that pause that I just made, that's something that you should get rid of, in my opinion. The conversation should flow. And it takes me probably 8 hours to cut up a single episode, and that's just the cut. And after the cut, I then have to go make music and add sound effects and do the theme song. And I didn't really get that deep with it until I was comfortable with the cutting up process. I think it was around episode 34 is when I used our first sound effect. There was music before that, but sound effects were not a thing for me. But I would say on average, it takes me about 20 hours to do a single episode. And that's 20 hours of like constant work. If you want to talk about me like editing and then stopping for an hour to like browse social media, watch a YouTube channel, eat dinner, whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably about a 40-hour process if you want to talk about it that way.
Wow.
But I mean, I love it, and you're going to have to love it. And I mean, we've been doing this for close to 3 years now, and there's been some tears on my end, some frustrations with hardware, listeners, etc. you go into it dreaming big, and it's a tough market. So you got to do what you got to do, and if you really want it, you just got to keep going for it.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love for sure. But the good thing is, like, you can tell that you put your heart and soul. All of you guys have put your heart and soul into this production, because everyone, when they sit down at that table and like it hits record, you can feel just like the passion come from everyone. Like they're like browsing social media on their phone or anything like that, or just like forgot their character sheet. They're actually like they're attentive, like actually did the research and all that. So it seems really good. It's really awesome.
I think we're both, like all of us at the table, any given recording session, we're all just curious to see what's about to happen. Like we're all just like as invested in the story as anyone else.
Yeah. And last Monday was our first time back around the table together in like a couple months almost, and it felt good just to be back in the seat against the wall that I sit next to, in my same chair that I sit in every time, next to Felomir every time, and you get the mics on, we turn the AC off, everyone starts to sweat a little bit, you get ready, and then
20 seconds
it
silence.
it felt good, to be back, and it feels at home.
The AC is a big one that I've noticed in other podcasts. Is there is such thing as noise reduction out there. But if you have the AC on and it's like near the microphones and you can hear the hum and they're all recording, and then you use noise reduction to remove that, what that ends up doing is removing the bass of all of the players' voices, anyone that's being recorded. So you don't want to. You have to sweat in order to do a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have that AC on.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool because it could definitely and one of the charm of the Four Orbs is the fact that you guys are all friends. Could you explain your origin story, actually, like, because it seems like Dave is the focal point, or like the connecting thread between all of you guys. Could you guys describe your origin story and how you guys met and what you guys decided, like, you know what, I like this human being, I think it'll be my friend?
Oh, dude, I'll start. So, okay, like I said, I met Dave in high school, right? And it was actually before the school year began. I was in band, and it was band camp my freshman year, and we were all standing in the band room. All the freshmen were there together, and I remember whoever was in charge, I can't remember if it was the drum major or the band director. They said, all right, turn to the person closest to you, and we're going to do some assisted stretches or whatever. And I turned to my left, and there was Dave, and we did stretches.
Just stretch each other out.
Yeah, that's how I met Dave.
Honestly, I thought the story was going to be at band camp. We were going across the street to get food, and somebody left a Checkers, like somebody had littered, and there's a Checkers bag on the ground, and me and him are walking over the bag, and this is the first joke I've ever heard Ryan Adams say. And he says, apparently I gotta eat. And it's because the bag of Checkers, the slogan at the time was, you gotta eat.
Oh, God.
You lost it. And I was like, I swear it wasn't that funny.
I didn't have funny friends before I got into high school. So.
You're like, you're easy to make laugh. We'll be friends.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I'm going to be friends with this dude because he laughs at me. This is great.
Well, I met Dave post-high school. Again, somewhere around 19 or 20, I think. And it was like through some mutual friends. We were all kind of getting together to meet at a Waffle House. And somehow it was me and whoever I was with got paired at the booth with Dave and Deidre. And again, I don't know how we got on the subject, but we both just started talking about Osmosis Jones.
What?
And the fact that we both were so versed in Osmosis Jones, we just lost it. Like, me and him were both just like crying, laughing over this Waffle House booth about Osmosis Jones for no reason.
How we knew every detail of every part of that.
Oh my God.
And pretty much then and there, we knew we kind of had we had something going between the two of us. We had some chemistry.
Did you buy that movie for me?
Yeah. Then for Dave's bachelor party, we all pretty much this whole D&D crew, mine and Deidre's wife, got together, and we went and got a cabin in the woods, like next to a river and stuff. And I bought Osmosis Jones on DVD for us all to watch.
Wow.
Damn, real MVP. That's incredible. And then perfect. And then For listeners, we all have our own separate favorite moments and memories of the adventure so far, but I am curious as to what your personal favorite moment of the adventure has been.
I don't know. I hate picking the obvious answer, so maybe I'll start with an obvious one, and then when it gets back to me, maybe I'll have something else. But when Dorith points the sword, does his verse, and and kills the big bad wolf, man, in the finale.
Of all people.
It was too good. It was too perfect. You know, the whole thing with Keth too. It all happened all at once. It was the most climax I think we've reached. You know,
what I'm saying about like how well everything came together in that episode. Like it's the finale. We're in the final boss fight or whatever, and the darkness fades. Keth is revealed. Dorith kills the big bad. Like it's. Like, and Dave promises, like he always swears, he did not plan it this way.
Yeah.
But the way it all came to a head in the one episode was perfect.
I guess for me, I don't think I've actually ever told anyone, because every time we do a roundtable, an out of character episode, I always forget to answer the questions that I'm asking. So I don't really I think I've always forgotten to answer what my favorite moment has been. So they talk about my faces all the time that I make at things, but I never really talk about the faces they make. Episode 8, we introduce a character named Balulabub.
Oh,
yeah!
And I had practiced this character's voice pretty strenuously. And the way that I got to the point of this character's voice is I took a clothespin and I clipped it to my tongue. And I had sat in front of a mirror talking to myself with something on my tongue like this.
Wow.
And I spent hours practicing that voice.
Dave Cole, the method actor. I know this.
And whenever that character says a sentence for the first time in English, all 5 of their faces were pretty much what the hell is going on. I think for me as a DM, I think that kind of defined where our story was heading and how committed I was to the production of the podcast. So that one always comes back to me as a favorite moment, is seeing their faces when they realize what Dave is putting together.
That's amazing. Personally, my favorite is like when you guys met like the big bad for the first time and you refuse to move the story forward and you just like I will die on this hill. It was so
that was such a frustrating moment for me.
Running through the streets like trying to fight everybody, and you could see Dave like, you are not going to win, like stop. And we were like, no,
because when they were taking my orbs, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Because I will say too, like that was a moment where, like we kind of say again, like I don't know what I'm gonna do until we're there. Like I was ready for my character to die, so that they could have the orbs and like the story continue that way. Like I didn't want to not be in the game anymore, but I was ready to go toe to toe with Dave on that one.
I was actually talking to another dungeon master today about that specific scene. Me and him have a problem of coming up with a way to explain to the players that you're not supposed to win this battle. This is just an introduction for you to understand who the bad person is. And now you have to, make your way back to that. And in all honesty, I was playing a Tomb of Annihilation game with Ryan Adams here. And Steven, who plays Keth, was the dungeon master. And at some point in that story, we got trapped in a room with like 12 wizards. And these were people that I hated, like my character hated. And Steven's thought process was, you should run away. But he didn't present it to me that way.
Yeah.
He presented it to me that, hey, there's these 12 people that you have like a reason to hate in all of your heart as a character. What are you going to do? And he was expecting us to surrender and become prisoners. I fought them.
If I remember correctly, we did not become prisoners.
No, we didn't become prisoners.
No.
But after we finished that module, I actually went and read it to determine like what was going on at certain moments. And now I know now that we were supposed to become prisoners at some point.
Oh no,
that was his attempt to make it at that point.
No, that's the opposite of what happened. Dave was like, no.
So Finch's defiance against Velmir in episode 24 of Four Orbs, he wasted his inspiration points, and I knew that he could not kill this character, and that they weren't supposed to kill that character because, well, I knew one, they couldn't. And I think if you're caught up on Four Orbs, there are definitely some major clues as to why. If you're not, you think I'm a DM that's probably trying to overpower the players, but that's really not the case.
TPK.
It's just he's not able to die yet.
This is not even him. Spoilers.
So that's a frustrating moment for me as a DM, is trying to convey to my players when they should flee instead of fight.
Yeah. And that's kind of the magic of Dungeons & Dragons, where, like, it's ultimately up to players and how they want to guide the story. So if they're, like, down to die on that hill, it's, like, their quote-unquote privilege. Although it's definitely oof. And then as a Dungeon Master, how do you deal with some of these more chaotic moments that happen from the party? Like, Dorth, like, contacting the big bad, like, constantly. Which I thought was hilarious. It was amazing that, like...
Oh, God. I love it. We did a panel at a local convention.
Oh, God.
Probably like 20 episodes in, we had a panel at a local convention. And I was asked pretty much that same question. How do I feel about Dorith as a character? As a dungeon master, I love Dorith, Babe, Groman, Kyle. He breaks me off of a script if I have one. He gets me into a mindset that I did not know could happen. He does everything I need a player to do to make it hard for people like Finch.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Dorith, you can't have 4 Doriths in a party.
No.
You can only have 1 Dorith. You can't have more than 1 Dorith, or it's too much chaos. But having one player control, or not necessarily control, but throw variables in, really is worth the time. So I personally, as a DM, love it. But this person at this panel did not love Dorith.
She specifically was like, if one character's gotta die, it's Dorith. Like, she was like, I cannot stand this man. And she's saying this to me, like, at the panel live. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
She also took your microphone so you couldn't respond.
Yeah.
So she took your microphone to tell you what she thought about your character.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it like a playful thing, or was it more so like I legitimately...
I know the girl. Like, we're friends outside of it, but like...
And Dorth has grown on her a little bit now with some of the turning points.
That's why I always tell people, give it time, because Dorth will always grow on you.
Yeah, this was still in the beginning when he was a real pain.
Yeah, she hated him, but it was all playful. Like, she knew he was playing a character.
Yeah.
But she did not like the elements that were being thrown into the story because of Dorth. Nowadays, though, I actually texted her right before our last out of character because I knew she probably wanted to submit questions for the roundtable. And I was like, I'm just curious. Do you still hate Dorth? And she did not. She said that Dorth has grown on her for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, the whole party is like a unit where they all fill in those certain like roles and gaps where it's just like it makes everything flow so much easier and so much better. Because like because it's really cool to have that like wrench to be thrown into the machine that Davis has sort of like built for you guys. And then suddenly there's IMs going to the big bad, and then big bad.
I mean, it really, even as a player too, I love the little bit of peppering of chaos that he does, and and to really go full circle here, one of my other favorite moments so far was when he finally got outed for basically DNing, the big bad the whole time. And we finally had this big confrontation between the party of, okay, so you have been lying to us this entire time. You've been endangering us this entire time. He finally got reprimanded for it. We didn't have to play dumb anymore.
And on that note, I just want to give a shout out to Steven, who plays Keth, because Keth is a dumb character, right? But Steven plays Keth in a way that he's dumb, but it takes a level of like intelligence to be able to pull off a character like that.
Dumb but smart.
Yeah, like the way he'll time Keth saying something to make it really funny, but Keth comes off dumb. But it's like Steven had to plan that and had to have really good comedic timing to play a dumb character in a way that it's really funny.
Or he can be the one who finds the answer to the riddle, but then having to give that answer in a Keth way.
Yeah, he'll pretend to stumble upon it. And it's really genius.
There's been some great puzzles that you've put together, Dave, because like and the way you handle it too is really cool. Because like
hold on, but we're losing you. I don't know if you're losing us.
Yeah.
Oh, are you?
Let
me see.
I saw that just went off again. That's what I'm watching. The lights on that keep going on and off.
Oh, it's us. Hold on.
Oh, it's okay. I was gonna say, I was like, I'm not losing frames.
No, it's us. This I got this headphone splitter thing that is probably on its last leg. So, but I think we're good now.
Good.
Sorry, could you start that question again?
Yes, yeah. So it is really cool because like as a dungeon master for me, it's like the opposite where like if they want to die in the hill, I'll let them die in the hill. But when it comes to puzzles and riddles, like I usually like give way and be like, all right guys, like here's the answer. But you actually like put the line in the sand and be like, I'm not gonna budge until you guys figure this out. So, and then
the line in the sand, or maybe like the line of chalk.
No. Oh my god!
I fucking hate his riddles.
We don't have to do this here. We don't have to do this here. I'm still mad about that. We solved that puzzle 3 times. 3 correct answers.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of my riddles. Though I do know that it frustrates them. I don't think for Orbs recordings wise, I've ever had to give up the answer of a riddle. Especially like the game door. Where you lost your ear and you lost your eye. Yeah, I don't give in to riddles on 4 Orbs. Before 4 Orbs, I definitely did. I made some pretty complex riddles before we started recording that I think I definitely had to give some answers to every once in a while. But no, I think I'm dying on the hill of I'm not giving them the answer to the riddle. But that also means if you do go that route as a dungeon master, you have to give them another route to avoid the riddle.
And as far as the chalk is concerned, the other route was genocide. And
there's another really great moment too. I would love to mention.
So good. And then last couple questions. So for anyone now, Dungeons and Dragons can be very intimidating if you're the outside in. You need to really know someone already doing it, usually in order to get in or like muscle your way through. When it comes to new dungeon masters or even players, what piece of advice do you wish you received when you first got into the community or the hobby?
More research. For me as a DM, as me as a producer, I should have been more thorough in practicing how to record and hitting a goal that I had. That's probably my biggest one. There's a lot of information of how to record a podcast, but a lot of that information is how to record a podcast if you have a multi-$1,000 studio to use.
Yeah.
You kind of have to find your own DIY way to do things. And I mean, the beginning of 4 Orbs is definitely not of quality that I wish it was. There's some tinniness, I guess you could say. Like, there's not a lot of girth behind the bass of the voice. But you kind of you just have to make sure you're hitting a goal that you want with your recording before you release anything to the public. Because if you're not proud of what you're putting out, then no one's going to like what you're putting out. That's kind of what I wish I would have known before starting. I jumped into it without much consideration for the technical side of things. As players,
I would say, as a player, one of the big things I had to learn was just to relax. Because I remember it was kind of like, okay, this is your character sheet, here's all the things he can do. And I remember like my palms sweating whenever we would hit record to just make sure that I was sticking to this, and like, your character's flaws are this, and this is, supposed to be like this. And it's kind of like, just have fun. Like, the amount of fun you and your friends are having right now will translate into the recording, and people will hear it, and they will have fun.
And if you are recording with your friends, avoid inside jokes, because no one in the public cares
we'll
about
know
your
about
inside
them.
jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in one of our last out of character sessions, Deidre had kind of said it best, and being like a new player and trying to figure out how to play a character and be that character is kind of almost insert some of yourself as that person. Like, no, kind of as a when you're playing the character, he's gonna kind of be you a little bit too, because that helps you get started, and it kind of helps guide you a little bit too. And then before you start to really figure out, who the character is, where you can start branching off from that main route.
I remember we got a review one time where someone said that, of course, they didn't like Dorothy, but that we had there was some out of character episode that we did, and he was surprised to learn that the person that played Dorothy was actually a cool guy. What did you think?
That's amazing. And then, where can we find more about the Four Orbs, and how best can we support the podcast?
The best way to support the podcast is, one, listen to it. Your downloads go to our statistics and help raise us in the charts. And we actually have hit pretty high in the recent Apple podcast charts. I think we are at the 81 mark on the comedy fiction category. And we're sticking up there for now. So the more you listen to us, the more we'll get some traffic and activity. That's the best way.
5-star reviews.
And then the big one is 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Those actually go even further to boost a podcast and get some credibility in those charts. And if you do listen and enjoy our content, and you have the fiscal background to handle this, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/4orbs. And there is some bonus content on there, like live shows and etc. Live shows, panels,
the out of character sessions we're talking about.
Stuff, yeah. And also, if you do give us $1 a month on our Patreon, if you can't do the Apple Podcast review, we might turn your name into an NPC, which in our most recent session, I think I have 7 NPCs that get Apple Podcast review names.
A lot of names got dropped.
Yeah. That's the best way to support us, is just, listen to us and talk about us. And of course, I think we're very approachable if you want to talk to us. We have a Discord. I run the Twitter pretty much. Deidre runs the Instagram.
The Discord is pretty fun. I like to plug that one now, because that's one that we're all involved in. And I may not see the notification every time, as I'm starting to realize, but it still does pop on my phone most of the time. And when I see people start to talk about an episode, I'll jump in there and see what they're talking about, and if I can be in the conversation, I will be. It's fun.
Yeah, the Discord is a lot of fun for me, because I don't know, it I guess it's me being, the wanting the spotlight all the time or whatever, but it's cool kind of being like a celebrity, because when they see you come in there, they're all like, oh, that's Kath, oh, that's Doran. And it's yes, it is me. Yes, it is. I love that.
Yeah, we have 20 people in the Discord, so we're celebrities now.
Yeah. Dude, I'll take what I can get, man.
That's amazing. All right, and what is the status? The last question: what is the status of Four Orbs merch? I need my shirt, and yet I don't have one yet. What's the status?
Okay, so I don't know anything about art. I need to get some stuff designed and get a shirt created. I have a shirt in mind that is pretty much Keth the Giant Slayer. I'm not really big in. I personally am not very big into just like 4 orbs on a shirt. I don't think it sells. I would rather somebody see you wearing a Keth the Giant Slayer shirt and ask, "What's Keth the Giant Slayer?" And now you have to tell them. So
And now you're friends.
my big one that I want to get done is a Keth the Giant Slayer shirt to come out, but I need to find me an artist that can make that happen. So if you know somebody, let me know.
Right on.
But
And
we
then,
do have stickers and pins and stuff.
We do
Uh-huh.
have stickers and buttons, so I can send you some of that stuff.
right on. Well, I really appreciate it. And thank you guys again for taking the time to answer a few of our questions. I really appreciate it. And yeah. And then, yeah. So I will end the stream really quick. Thanks again
Thanks
for
for
people who
having
watched.
us, dude.